Found out my husband's teenage brother set hidden camera in my bedroom, so I called the police. But months later it turns out his mother made him order it and let him take the blame while she pretended to comfort me. I swear my heart jumped out of my chest. I stood there frozen for a good 10 seconds, just staring at it like it was about to sprout legs and attack me. Once the initial shock wore off, I grabbed it and started freaking out. Like, who put this here? How long has it been here? Why is it here? I live alone, so my brain went to the darkest corners of paranoia. Was someone watching me sleep? Watching me change? Did someone have access to my private moments? It felt like my safe space was totally invaded. I didn't know what else to do, so I grabbed my phone and immediately Googled, what to do if you find a hidden camera. The first thing I read was to get out of the house, and I didn't need to be told twice. I grabbed my essentials and bolted out of there like my life depended on it. I drove straight to the police station. Let me tell you, explaining to the officer on duty that I found a hidden camera in my bedroom was one of the weirdest conversations I've ever had. The officer was professional, of course, but I couldn't help feeling like I was in some bad Lifetime movie. They took my complaint seriously, though, which was a relief. An officer even came back to my apartment with me to check if there were any other cameras or suspicious things. When they told me everything else seemed fine, I didn't feel fine. I mean, sure, there wasn't anything else obvious, but the idea that someone had been in my apartment without me knowing was enough to make my skin crawl. I was so on edge that I didn't even want to grab clothes or anything. I just wanted to leave. So, I called my best friend, Mia, and asked if I could crash at her place. She told me to come over immediately, and I practically ran to my car. The next day, I called my husband, Carlos, 28M. He's in the army and stationed in a different state, so I didn't want to ruin his night by calling him in a panic at 2 a.m. I waited until the next morning when I was slightly calmer, or at least calm enough to explain without bursting into tears every 5 seconds. When I told him about the hidden camera, he went dead silent for like 10 whole seconds. He finally said, "Didi, this isn't just creepy, this is dangerous. What if you have a stalker?" I started spiraling again, asking him things like, "Do you think someone's been following me? Is it someone I know? Should I check my car for trackers?" Carlos tried to calm me down, but I could tell he was panicking a little too. After some back and forth, he suggested something I had been dreading. "Babe, I think you should go stay with my parents for a while. At least until we figure this out." Now, look, I love Carlos, and I respect his family, but his mom, Anna, 47F, and I, let's just say we're not exactly BFFs. She's always been a little too opinionated, and I've always felt like she secretly thinks I'm not good enough for her precious boy. Don't get me wrong, she's never been outright mean to me, but there's always this unspoken tension between us. Staying at her house felt like jumping from one uncomfortable situation into another. But Carlos was right. I couldn't crash at Mia's place forever, and I definitely couldn't go back to my apartment. So, I sucked it up and asked Carlos to call his mom and explain everything. I didn't want to deal with Anna's skeptical questions or her classic, "Are you sure you're not overreacting, dear?" tone. A few hours later, Anna called me herself. Her voice was softer than usual, and she said, "Didi, pack your things and come home immediately. You shouldn't be alone right now." That caught me off guard. It was probably the kindest thing she's ever said to me. I packed my stuff from Mia's apartment and drove over to Anna's house. Her place was only about a 30-minute drive away. To my surprise, Anna was really nice to me and took care of me. I stayed there for a week. And then I felt that I could go back to my place. The police were still in the process of getting the information from the camera company. I tried to act normal, but deep down, every little creak or noise made me jump. I started keeping the bathroom door slightly open when I showered, and I couldn't sleep without a nightlight. Every corner of my apartment felt suspicious. Last week, I got a frantic call from Anna saying that the officers were at the house and they were taking Marco, 16M, Carlos' younger brother, into custody, and they were saying that it was my fault. I didn't know what to do. My heart was racing as Anna's voice crackled over the phone. She was panicked and furious, and somewhere in between, I could hear Marco crying in the background. I threw on my shoes and practically ran out the door. They told me to get to the police station immediately, and that's when I found out that the camera's videos were sent to the IP address of the laptop that belonged to Marco. My heart sank. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Marco? Sweet, nerdy Marco who stayed up all night gaming and was always polite to me? Anna was screaming at me in the lobby of the police station, telling me that it was all my fault, that I shouldn't have filed a report, that this was going to ruin Marco's life. Her words stung, and I wanted to shout back, "How is this my fault? I didn't put a camera in my own room." But I just stood there, frozen, my arms crossed tightly over my chest. Carlos called me shortly after, and he was conflicted. He kept saying things like, "Didi, he's just a kid. He made a stupid mistake. We can't let this ruin his future." And while I understood where he was coming from, I couldn't just unfile a police report. It wasn't like sending an email and hitting Fundo. The system was already in motion. The next few days were a blur of police interviews, lawyer meetings, and awkward silences at Anna's house. Marco wasn't allowed to come home immediately, and Anna would go silent every time she looked at me. It hurt because, despite everything, I didn't hate Marco. I was just disappointed. I kept replaying every interaction I'd ever had with him, trying to find clues I missed. Was he ever creepy? Did he ever act out of line? But the truth is, he always seemed like a normal teenager. Eventually, it was decided that Marco would do community service 100 hours, and because he was a minor, his records would be sealed. It wasn't the worst outcome, but it still felt heavy. Anna didn't talk to me much after that. There was a wall between us now, thin but impossible to break through. Now my entire family from my husband's side is mad at me. It's not even my fault. Marco is the one who acted like a creep and didn't even apologize to me once. He couldn't even look me in the eyes when we met and just ran away. This was sad for me because I always thought that Marco and I were close, almost like siblings. We used to joke around, share snacks, and talk about random stuff. I even helped him with his homework a few times when he was struggling with math. But now, I'm still getting calls and text messages saying that I've ruined his life. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Just pretend none of this happened? Sweep it under the rug and let him get away with something so invasive and violating? Update 1. Hi everyone. I know it's been 3 months since I made that post, but I have a few updates. And honestly, my hands are still shaking as I type this because something happened yesterday, and I have no idea how to process it. So, it was a regular lazy Sunday. I was in my pajamas when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I assumed it was maybe a delivery or a neighbor. But nope. When I opened the door, it was Marco. I froze for a second. We hadn't spoken since everything went down, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I wanted to talk to him. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his sleeves, avoiding eye contact. I asked, "What are you doing here?" And he said he needed to talk to me. I thought, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe he's finally here to apologize. I stepped aside, let him in, and he sat down on my sofa. The tension in the room was thick. I didn't know if I should sit down with him or stand awkwardly by the door. Trying to be a halfway decent host, I asked, "Do you want something to eat? A soda?" But he just shook his head and said, "No, let's just get straight to the point." Marco took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry for what happened to you, but I'm not the one responsible for it." My brain short-circuited. Like, excuse me? What was he even talking about? He was the one whose IP address matched the camera data. He was the one who was taken in by the police. How could he not be responsible? I told him that he was the one who ordered the camera and the evidence points to him. But he told me that yes, he ordered the camera, but it wasn't for him. It was for Anna. I stared at him, trying to process his words. My brain felt like it was buffering. Anna? My mother-in-law Anna? I asked him, why would you order a camera for Anna to spy on me? He looked so uncomfortable, like he was trying to pull the words out of his throat with force. He said, she told me it was for her office. She said she needed it for security reasons. I didn't think much of it, so I ordered it for her. At this point, I could feel myself starting to sweat. My palms were clammy, and I felt like the room was spinning. I asked, but Marco, how did it end up in my apartment? In my bedroom? He told me that he thinks that she must have planted it during my birthday party when we were all at my place. My jaw just dropped. I could barely form words. I managed to say something like, "You're telling me Anna did this? Anna put a camera in my bedroom?" Marco nodded but quickly added, "I don't know for sure. But I swear, Dee, I didn't do it. I'd never do something like that to you." At this point, I was just staring at him, completely numb. He then broke down crying. Like full on, face in his hands, shaking shoulders, kind of crying. And let me tell you, seeing Marco, someone I'd always thought of as this goofy, carefree kid, completely fall apart like that, it broke me a little. I didn't know what to do. I just sat there frozen, watching him sob, my brain trying to make sense of everything he had just told me. After what felt like forever, I managed to ask, "Why didn't you tell me any of this before, Marco? Why now?" He told me that when Anna found out I had filed a police complaint, she pulled him aside and said, "They're not going to be able to catch you. And even if they do, you're a minor, you won't face any real jail time. But if they find out it was me, I'll go to prison." I think my jaw actually dropped at this point. Marco said he didn't say anything because he wanted to protect his mom. And like, yeah, I get it. He's a kid. A scared, confused kid who thought he was protecting the one person who's supposed to protect him. But it doesn't make this whole mess any easier to digest. He kept talking about how he's been avoiding me because he couldn't stand the idea of looking me in the eyes and seeing disgust there. He said every time he thought about me, all he could see was the camera, the police, and the way I looked at him when everything first went down. And then, the part that really gutted me, apparently, word got out at his school. Kids found out about the whole camera incident, and the rumor spread like wildfire. He said people started avoiding him, whispering when he walked past, and treating him like some kind of criminal. He said he's been completely shunned. No friends, no one to sit with at lunch, nothing. And while he knows he can't make them believe him, he at least wanted me to know the truth. At this point, I couldn't even be angry at him anymore. I was just sad. Sad for him. Sad for myself. Sad for the absolute mess Anna had created and dumped on both of us. I handed him a tissue, and we just sat there in silence for a while. I was trying to process everything he had told me, and I think he was just trying to pull himself together. Eventually, I asked him, "Marco, do you have any idea why Anna would do this? Like, was there a reason? Did she ever say anything to you that could explain it?" He shook his head and said he didn't know. But he did mention one thing that stuck with me. Apparently, a few weeks before my birthday party, Anna had started making weird comments about me to Marco. Stuff like, "She's too good for Carlos, don't you think?" Or "Sometimes I feel like she's hiding something from us." At the time, Marco said he didn't think much of it. He thought maybe his mom was just being overprotective or, I don't know, nosy. But now, looking back, he thinks she was already planning something. I asked him if he thought Anna was trying to catch me doing something. Like, was she trying to find evidence of me cheating? Or stealing? Or, I don't know, what? Marco said he honestly didn't know. When Marco left, I just sat there on my sofa, staring at the floor for what felt like hours. I feel so betrayed. I don't even know how to describe the feeling. Anna was the one person who I thought had my back during all of this. She was the one who hugged me, made me tea, and told me I was strong. She looked me in the eyes and told me I was safe in her house. And now there's a chance she was behind all of it? I don't know what to do. I haven't told Carlos yet. He's at work, and I don't want to drop this bomb on him over the phone. but I know I have to tell him. He will be coming next weekend. A part of me is scared he won't believe me. I mean, how do you even bring this up in a conversation? Hey babe, so your mom might have been the one spying on me with a hidden camera. Thoughts? Another part of me keeps wondering, why? Why would Anna do this? Was she trying to catch me doing something? Did she not trust me? Was it some kind of power play? Or is there something even darker that I'm not seeing yet? I feel sick just thinking about it. At the same time, Marco's timing feels off. Why now? Why, after 3 months, did he suddenly decide to come clean? Is he telling the truth, or is he just trying to shift the blame off himself? I have so many questions and zero answers. I've been pacing around my apartment since yesterday, trying to figure out what to do next. Should I confront Anna directly? Should I go back to the police with this information? Should I wait for Carlos to come home and talk to him first? This whole thing feels like some twisted soap opera. I can't believe this is actually my life right now. Any suggestions, guys? Update 2. Hi everyone. First of all, thank you for all your comments and suggestions on my last post. Honestly, reading your words made me feel a little less alone in all of this mess. I was so scared to tell Carlos, but I knew I couldn't keep carrying this weight by myself. So, here's what happened. Carlos came home early yesterday morning. I was pacing around the living room like some kind of caged animal, and as soon as he walked in, I basically word vomited the entire story. I told him about Marco showing up at our place, about what he said, about how he's been carrying this guilt and fear all this time. Carlos just stared at me for a second. Then he shook his head and said, Marco is lying. My mom would never do that. And honestly, I don't blame him for reacting that way. It's his mom. She's been this rock-solid figure in his life forever, and now he's being told that she planted a camera in our house because she thought I was cheating on him? I can't imagine how much that must have shattered his reality. But I looked him right in the eyes and said, Carlos, I saw Marco. I saw how he was crying. I saw how he could barely even look me in the face. He's not lying. He's scared, and he's been carrying this all by himself. Carlos said that we need to figure this out right now. And just like that, we were in the car, driving straight to Anna's house. Let me tell you, those 20 minutes in the car were the most awkward, silent 20 minutes of my life. Carlos was gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white, and I was just staring out the window trying not to throw up. When we got to Anna's house, Marco wasn't there. He was apparently out with friends or something, so we had to wait. Anna greeted us with her usual warm smile and acted like nothing was wrong. She offered us coffee and asked if we wanted to stay for dinner, and Carlos said yes. I could tell he wanted to wait until Marco came home before confronting anyone. Dinner was, wow, it was so tense. Like, I could barely eat a single bite. Marco eventually came home, plopped down at the table, and gave me this quick, nervous glance before looking down at his plate. We ate in silence for about 5 minutes before Carlos just couldn't hold it in anymore. He put his fork down, looked Marco dead in the eyes, and said, Marco, Didi told me what you said to her. I want to know why you're lying about my mom. The whole table froze. Marco looked at me, then at Anna, then back at his plate. I gave him a little nod, like, it's okay. You can tell him. Marco took a deep breath, sat up straight, and said, I'm not lying, Carlos. It wasn't me. It was Mom. She told me to keep quiet about it. Anna's fork clattered onto her plate. She turned to Marco with this icy look and said, Marco, enough. Stop making up stories. And then it just exploded. Marco started yelling, Anna started yelling back. Carlos was trying to get them both to calm down, and I was just sitting there staring at my half-eaten pasta like it was going to give me answers. But then Marco's voice cracked, and he started crying. Like, really crying. And through those tears, he said, Mom, please stop lying. You told me they wouldn't catch me because I'm a kid. You said you'd go to prison if I told the truth. Please, just tell the truth. And then, Anna's face changed. She stopped yelling. She stopped trying to deflect. She just slumped back in her chair and covered her face with her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. Fine. Yes. It was me. I did it. Carlos just stared at her like she was a stranger. He asked her, Why, Mom? Why would you do something like this? Why would you spy on Didi? She's never given you a reason not to trust her. And Anna just started rambling about how she had a feeling something was off, how she wanted to protect Carlos, how she thought I was hiding something. She kept saying things like, I wasn't going to use the footage for anything bad. I just wanted to be sure. Sure about what, Anna? That I'm not secretly a villain plotting world domination from my kitchen? Carlos was quiet for a long time after that. And then he just said, I've never been this hurt in my entire life. He stood up, grabbed his keys, and said, I need to leave. I followed him out. The drive home was silent. Again. When we got home, Carlos went straight to our bedroom, closed the door, and didn't come out for hours. I sat on the couch, just staring at the TV, not even registering what was on the screen. At some point, Carlos finally came out. He sat down next to me and said, I don't know how to process this. My mom, my own mom, did this to us. To you. How do I even begin to deal with that? And honestly, I didn't have an answer for him. We haven't talked much since. It's like there's this heavy fog hanging over both of us. I can tell Carlos is heartbroken not just because of what his mom did, but because he defended her so fiercely when this all started. And me? I'm just exhausted. Emotionally, mentally, everything. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if Carlos is going to cut ties with Anna, or if he's going to try to rebuild some kind of relationship with her. But I do know one thing, I'm done pretending everything's fine. Anna crossed a line that you can't just uncross. Trust is one of those things that, once it's shattered, can never fully go back to the way it was. For now, Carlos and I are just taking it one day at a time. I'll update again if anything big happens, but honestly, I think it's going to take a long time to untangle this mess. Update 3. Hello everyone. It's only been a week since my last update, and honestly, I'm still trying to process everything. Things have been moving so fast, and every time I think we've hit the peak of this roller coaster, it just keeps going. So, Carlos and I have been talking a lot. Like, deep, emotional, what do we do now? Kind of talks. I told him straight up that I was not ready to talk to Anna again. And honestly, I don't know if I ever will be. I mean, let's break this down. She put a camera in our bedroom. Like, our bedroom. A space where we're supposed to feel safe and private. She dragged Marco into this mess, made him carry all the guilt and fear, and even let him take the fall. She lied to everyone's faces for months. How do you even come back from something like that? Carlos understands where I'm coming from, but I can see how much this is breaking him. He's always been super close to his mom, she was like his best friend. And now he's stuck in this limbo where he feels like he's betraying her by not talking to her but also knows that what she did was seriously messed up. But yesterday, it got crazier. It was around 6 p.m. Carlos was in the shower, and I was scrolling on my phone in the living room when the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there was Marco standing there with a duffel bag, his backpack, and a face that just screamed I've had enough. Before I could even say anything, he just said, "Mom kicked me out." I was stunned. Like, completely frozen for a second. This kid, because let's be real, he's still just a kid, had been carrying so much weight on his shoulders, and now his own mom had turned her back on him? I pulled him inside, sat him down on the couch, and asked him what happened. Apparently, Anna and Marco got into another fight after Carlos stopped answering her calls. Marco said she was furious, like, yelling, throwing things furious. She told him that he had ruined everything by telling us the truth and that he wasn't welcome in her house anymore. She kicked her own son out because he told the truth. I can't wrap my head around it. When Carlos came out of the shower and saw Marco sitting on the couch with his bags, he looked between us and said, "What happened?" Marco told him everything, how Anna blamed him, how she said he was disloyal to her, how she basically threw him out like he was nothing. Carlos didn't say anything for a long time. He just sat down next to Marco, put his hand on his shoulder, and said, "You're staying here. For as long as you need to." And that was that. We set Marco up in the guest room. I made him some dinner and then Carlos and I stayed up talking again. Here's the thing, Marco doesn't want to involve the authorities, and honestly, neither do I. This whole situation is already so messy and complicated. The thought of police reports, court dates, and all the drama that comes with it just makes my head hurt. But at the same time, I can't stop thinking about Marco. He's still so young, and he's had to grow up way too fast because of all this. He's been dealing with guilt, shame, and fear for months, and now he's basically been abandoned by his own mother. Carlos told me he's been avoiding Anna's calls. I think he's scared to talk to her because he doesn't want to hear her excuses, or worse, are trying to manipulate him into forgiving her. Also, Carlos is leaving soon for work. He will be stationed overseas, and that's been planned for months, and now the timing couldn't be worse. We've talked about what happens when he's gone. Marco will stay here with me for now. Carlos said he'll check in with both of us regularly, but I can tell he feels so guilty about leaving right now. Honestly, I don't mind Marco staying with me. He's a good kid, and I know he just needs some stability and someone to show him that he's safe now. But it's still such a weird situation. Like, I never expected to be here playing guardian to my teenage nephew because his mom went full soap opera villain. Oh, and Anna? She's been trying to contact Carlos nonstop. Texts, calls, voicemails, you name it. Some of them are angry, accusing Carlos of choosing me over his own mother. Others are apologetic, begging him to come over so they can talk it out. But honestly, I don't think Carlos is ready to face her. And I don't blame him. For now, we're just taking things one day at a time. Marco's here, he's safe, and that's what matters. Carlos and I are trying to keep our heads above water and support each other through this. It feels like our little family is hanging on by a thread, but we're still here. Thank you for listening, Reddit. Seriously. You have no idea how much it helps to just get this all out.